Hi friends, I wanted to discuss another part of the population interaction, that is parasitism. Species A is benefited, usually it is the parasite, and species B, which is the host, it is harmed. So parasitism is a very good adaptation. And what is the difference between predator and parasitism? If you look into predator, as one of the famous ecologists has defined, predation is where the predator lives on the capital, whereas parasite lives on the income. So the predator completely eats out the prey, whereas in parasitism they slowly feed on the host. That's the reason. So the famous ecologist told that parasitism is a phenomena where they depend upon income, whereas predator depends upon the capital. In both of them, one species is benefited and the other species is harmed. But in parasitism, the harm is not immediate, whereas in predation, the harm is immediate and the prey completely disappears. So parasitic mode of life ensures free lodging and meals. That is, it is similar to Dharmchatra, what we call it as. So it is not surprising that parasitism has evolved in so many taxonomic groups, from plants to higher vertebrates. You notice that parasites themselves have parasites. So we call that as hyperparasitism. All this can be noticed in parasitism. The parasitism mode of life, it ensures free lodging and meals. So, and it is very favorable in nature, and a large number of parasites are noticed, not only in plants but also in animals. We'll discuss these examples one by one. The parasites are host specific. So most of the parasites, they have evolved to be host specific. That is, they can parasitize only a single species of host in such a way that both host and the parasite tend to co-evolve. If the host tends to evolve to avoid the parasite tends to co-evolve with counter evolution so that it can overcome the change, and that is how they co-evolve together. That is, if the host evolves special mechanism for rejection or resisting the parasite also has to evolve mechanisms to counteract and neutralize them in order to be successful with the same host species. Now, the special adaptations that are noticed in parasites are there is loss of unnecessary sense organs, especially in case of tapeworm, roundworm. They don't require sense organs, and they have presence of adhesive organs or suckers to cling on to the host. They have to hold on to the host and should not get digested by the enzymes too. And most of them, they do not have digestive system, loss of digestive system, because they are directly, if they are infecting the intestine, they are getting directly the digested food. And high reproductive capacity they have, because their survival chances are very less. The life cycle of parasites are often complex. They involve one or two intermediate hosts or vectors to facilitate parasitization of its primary host. Even if one of the host or vectors is absent, they do not survive or they do not continue further. The human liver fluke, a trematode parasite, which is a platyhelminthes, fasciola hepatica, it depends on two intermediate hosts, a snail as well as a fish, to complete its life cycle. So even if one of them is missing, they cannot complete its life cycle. The malarial parasite, that is, needs a vector, Plasmodium vivax, which causes malaria. It needs mosquito to spread to other hosts. It cannot spread on its host on its own. That is what you have to remember about in case of some of the adaptations, special adaptations in case of parasites. So the human is the here you can notice how the human liver flu is going to infect. So the infected human being is throwing out the feces, and they have the larvae which enter into the snail, the primary host. The sporospores develop into free swimming cercaria and leave the snail, and they enter into the fishes, and they are found in the muscles of fish tissue. And if they are improperly cooked and eaten, these sporosis, they are going to enter into human body, and they are going to enter into the liver. So the human is the primary host. So if they eats raw or undercooked fish containing encysted immature flukes, gets infected by this parasite, that is human liver flu, and it affects the liver. In case of the Plasmodium sporozoites, that is Plasmodium vivax, they have to enter into the mosquito. Mosquito is the first vector, and they bite the initial human host. Now the infected human host, they are going to multiply, and in case if it is a female and she is pregnant, the fetus also is going to have a transmission of this host. The liver, it enters into the Plasmodium vivax, and there it infects the blood, and the second vector, it is transferred again by a mosquito. That is how from an infected person to a healthy person, through a mosquito bite which acts as a vector, it spreads this Plasmodium vivax. So that is what you have to remember regarding the parasite Plasmodium vivax. You can also call it as, there is a thin hairline difference between a parasite and a pathogen. So even pathogens are a type of parasites. Hosts become physically weak whenever they are infected by this parasite. The parasites harm the host. It reduces the survival, growth and reproduction of the host, and reduce its population density. The parasites might even render the host more vulnerable to predation by making it physically weak. So parasite infested prey is physically weak, and it can be easily captured by a predator. Now the parasites can be either external parasites or internal parasites. Accordingly, we call it as ectoparasites and endoparasites. In case of ectoparasites, the parasites, they feed on the external surface of the host organism, are called ectoparasites. Example is leech or jane. The most familiar example of these are lice on humans and ticks on dogs. Many marine fishes are infested with ectoparasitic copepods. Cuscuta is an ectoparasitic plant that doesn't have any leaf. It has lost its chlorophyll, and leaves are absent in the course of evolution. How does it draw its nourishment? It produces haustoria, which are root-like structures which enter into the host plants, and they are knob-like structures, and they draw nourishment from the host plant. We call it as haustoria, and that is how the Cuscuta plant depends on the host plant for its source of nutrition, and it's a complete parasitic plant. The female mosquito is not a parasite, it is just a vector, transporting vehicle, although it needs our blood for reproduction. So this is the copepods in fishes, which are going to cause itching sensation to the fishes, and they rub onto the stones. You can also find at the external part of it, at the gills part of it, a large number of copepods are there. So these are the variety of copepods that are there, ectoparasites in fishes. This is a picture of Cuscuta cainensis. There is also yellowish green, we call it as Cuscuta reflexa. They look like spaghetti noodles on top of a host plant. So none of them have leaves. If you notice it clearly, they do not have chloroplast. They cannot synthesize their own food. They are drawing nourishment from the host plant. This is the predation that you can notice. So here you can see the entwined Cuscuta plant, which is having its root entering into the host plant, and they have this knob-like structures called as haustoria, which draws the nourishment from the stem of the host plant. So now the next type of parasites which are found within the organism is the endoparasites. Endoparasites are those that live inside the host body at different sites. It can be in liver, kidney, lungs, red blood cells, etc. The life cycles of endoparasites are most complex because of their extreme specialization. So you can notice in Platyhelminthes and Ascalmenthes, we have studied about those. Platyhelminthes are hermaphrodites or bisexuals, whereas the Ascalmenthes, there is sexual dimorphism, male and females are separate, but they have more than one primary host, so their development is complex. So their morphological and anatomical features of endoparasites are greatly simplified while emphasizing their reproductive potential. So now parasitism is also noticed in brood parasitism, wherein the cuckoos or coils or cogili, they are going to outsource their eggs. They are going to lay their eggs in the crow's nest. So that is one of the brood parasitism that we might notice in the birds, in which the parasitic bird, like the cuckoo bird, lays its eggs in the nest of its host and lets the host incubate them and bring up their young ones. During the course of evolution, the eggs of the parasitic birds have evolved to resemble the host egg in size and color to reduce the chances of the host bird detecting the foreign eggs and ejecting them from the nest. So this is the cuckoo bird which lays its egg in the nest. You can see the different colors of it. So the egg of the quail as well as the crow's egg, there is very little difference between them, even though the colors might have a slight variation, but the dots on them, they look similar. So for the mother crow, it becomes difficult to differentiate between the quail's egg as well as its own egg. Thank you.